Mark lived on a small colony planet called Terra Nova. It was far from Earth and full of strange plants and quiet skies. Life on Terra Nova was simple. Mark worked as a technician, fixing machines that helped the colony survive. He liked quiet days and clear nights, but he never expected that one day everything would change. One morning, as Mark drank his coffee, a strange message arrived. It was not from his friends or family. The message was from the Galactic Alliance, a group of many alien species that work together to keep peace in the galaxy. The message was short and simple. You are invited to the ceremony. Meet the groom. Mark looked at the message again and again. He could not understand it. Why would the Galactic Alliance invite him? He was just a simple man from a small colony. And what did meet the groom mean? Was it a wedding? But he did not know anyone from the Alliance. Curious and confused, Mark decided to ask his friend, Lena. Lena worked as a historian and knew many things about the Alliance and its customs. He showed her the message. Lena's eyes grew wide. Mark, this is very important. The Galactic Alliance does not send invitations like this to just anyone. Meet the groom is a phrase used for very special ceremonies. It means you have a role to play. But why me? Mark asked. I am not important. I am just a technician. Lena smiled. Sometimes the Alliance chooses humans for their unique qualities, courage, kindness, and the ability to think differently. Maybe they saw something special in you. Mark thought about it. He did not feel special. But he knew humans had surprised many aliens before. They were strong and brave in ways others were not. Maybe this was his chance to do something great. After a night of thinking, Mark made his decision. He would go to the ceremony. He packed a small bag, said goodbye to Lena, and headed to the spaceport. The invitation had a place and time, a grand palace on a planet called Zelora, deep in the Alliance's territory. The trip was long. Mark watched stars pass by the window of the starship. He wondered what awaited him. Was it a mistake, a trap, or a new beginning? When the ship landed on Zelora, Mark felt a mix of fear and excitement. The planet was different from Terra Nova. It had tall trees that shone in the light, and the air smelled fresh and clean. The palace stood tall in the distance, glowing softly. Under the twin suns at the entrance, Mark was greeted by beings he had never seen before. They were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like silver or gold. They wore clothes that looked like flowing light. They bowed respectfully to Mark and led him inside. The palace was like nothing Mark had ever seen. Walls made of crystal reflected colors everywhere. Soft music filled the air, making the place feel alive. People of many different kinds moved around, some with wings, some with many eyes, some with smooth blue skin. They all looked at Mark with interest, but no one spoke to him yet. Mark felt small in this vast place, but he kept walking forward, following the guides. He wondered where the groom was. Would he meet a man, a woman, another alien? The question made his heart beat faster. Suddenly, a voice came over a loudspeaker. It was calm and clear. Welcome, honored guests. Today, we gathered to celebrate the union of two worlds. The groom, chosen by ancient custom, will soon appear. Mark looked around. The crowd grew quiet. The lights dimmed. Then, to Mark's surprise, a door opened at the front of the room and the master of ceremonies spoke. Please welcome the groom. Mark looked behind him, thinking the groom would be someone else, but no one was there. Then he heard the sound of applause. The crowd was clapping, smiling, and looking right at him. Their eyes were full of hope and respect. Mark's heart stopped. Was he the groom? How? Why? He stepped forward slowly. The applause grew louder. People began to cheer. Mark's mind raced. He wanted to ask questions, but no words came. All he could do was look out at the crowd and wonder what this moment meant. Then, a figure appeared next to him. It was a tall woman with shining blue skin and eyes that sparkled like stars. She smiled warmly and took his hand. I am Princess Vela, she said softly. You have been chosen to unite our worlds. Will you accept this honor? Mark looked at her and felt a strange calm. He did not understand everything, but he knew this was important. This was a moment that could change everything for him and maybe for all humans. With a deep breath, Mark nodded. The crowd cheered louder, and the music grew joyful. Mark knew his life was about to change forever. Mark felt a strange mix of excitement and fear as he followed Princess Vela through the grand halls of the palace. The walls glowed softly with colors that changed like a gentle sunrise. The floor beneath their feet was smooth and cool, made from a material that seemed to hum with energy. The palace was alive with quiet whispers and gentle music. Many aliens passed by, their eyes curious but respectful. Some nodded at Mark, while others smiled kindly. Despite his nervousness, Mark felt a little more at ease. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of something bigger now. Vela led him to a large room filled with windows that looked out over the city of Zelora. The buildings below sparkled with light, and flying vehicles moved like glowing fireflies through the sky. "This is where you will stay for now," Vela said, her voice calm and gentle. "The palace is your home while you learn about our customs. You will meet many important people here, and you will have duties as the groom." Mark nodded slowly. The word duties felt heavy, but he was determined to do his best. Just then, a small being with bright green skin and large eyes approached them. "I am Sira, your guide," she said in a soft voice. "I will help you learn about our people and the traditions of the Alliance." Mark smiled. "Thank you, Sira. I don't know much about your world, but I want to learn." Sira bowed slightly. "That is good. You will find that our ways are different, but also beautiful. It will take time to understand everything. Over the next few hours, Sira showed Mark around the palace. They visited grand dining halls filled with strange and delicious foods, gardens where plants sang softly when touched, and libraries that held knowledge from hundreds of worlds. Mark was amazed by the sights and sounds, but he also noticed the quiet tension in the palace. Not all the guests looked happy. Some whispered behind closed doors, and Mark caught worried glances from the guards. Later, in his new room, Mark sat by a window and looked out over the city again. He wondered what his life would be like here. Could he really be part of this strange and wonderful world? Suddenly, there was a soft knock at the door. Vela stepped inside, carrying a small box wrapped in silver cloth. "This is a gift for you," she said, smiling. "It is a symbol of your new role. Please accept it." Mark opened the box carefully. Inside was a simple ring, but it shimmered with colors that seemed to change with the light. He looked up at Vela. "What does it mean?" he asked. Vela's eyes shone. "This ring is the mark of union. It shows that you are the chosen groom, and that our worlds are now connected through you." Mark felt the weight of the moment. He slipped the ring onto his finger, and a warm feeling spread through him. It was as if the ring carried the hopes of many people. Over the next days, Mark met many important aliens. Some were leaders, others were warriors or scholars. They all treated Mark with respect and kindness, but Mark felt the pressure of their expectations. One day, during a meeting with the Council of Elders, Mark learned more about the ceremony. It was an ancient tradition meant to bring peace and friendship between their people and humans. "The groom is not only a partner to the princess," an elder explained. "He is a symbol of trust, courage, and hope. The Alliance believes that humans carry these qualities in a special way." Mark listened carefully. He still felt unsure if he was ready, but he knew he had to try later. Vela took Mark to a training room. It was filled with tools and devices unlike anything Mark had seen before. "You will learn to speak our language fluently," she said. "You will learn our history and how to work with our people. It will not be easy, but I will help you." Mark looked at her and smiled. "Thank you, Vela. I want to do this for you and for my people." Days turned into weeks. Mark worked hard to learn everything he could. He practiced the alien language until he could speak simple sentences. He learned how to wear the traditional clothes of the Alliance and how to behave in formal meetings. Sometimes he felt tired and frustrated. The customs were confusing, and he missed the simplicity of his life on Terra Nova. But each time he thought of giving up, he remembered the applause and hope in the eyes of those who welcomed him. One evening, while Walking in the palace gardens, Mark and Vela talked quietly under the stars. Do you ever miss home? Vela asked softly. Mark nodded. Yes, sometimes. But I feel that I am part of something important here. I want to help both our worlds. Vela smiled. That is why you were chosen. Humans have a strength that goes beyond physical power. Your spirit and heart are what make you special. Mark looked up at the stars and felt a new sense of purpose. He was no longer just a technician from a small colony. He was the groom chosen to unite two worlds, and though the road ahead was uncertain, Mark was ready to face it. The morning sunlight filtered gently through the tall windows of the palace. Mark sat quietly, his thoughts full of questions and hopes since arriving on Zelora. His life had changed in ways he never expected, but today, he was about to learn something even more surprising. Princess Vela entered the room, her calm presence filling the space. She carried a scroll sealed with a golden emblem. Mark looked up, curious. Mark. Vela began softly. There is something you need to know. Something about why you were chosen. Mark nodded. I want to understand everything. Vela sat beside him and unrolled the scroll. It was old, written in the ancient language of the Alliance. Slowly, she translated. Long ago, the Alliance faced many dangers. Different worlds argued and fought. To protect peace, a ritual was created. It is called the Union Ceremony. It brings the worlds together through a special bond. Mark listened carefully. The groom, chosen by the stars, represents the hope of humanity. It is said humans have a unique spirit, one of courage, kindness, and great will. That is why you were chosen, Mark. Mark felt a mix of pride and confusion. But why me? How did they choose me? Vela smiled gently. The stars guide. Your actions, your heart, and your strength were seen from far away. You carry the qualities that can unite many. Just then, the doors opened and a group of council members entered. They were wise and strong leaders from many worlds. Their faces were serious but respectful. One of them, a tall figure with silver hair and bright eyes, stepped forward. Mark, as the groom, you represent not just humans, but the future of our alliance. It is a great honor and a great responsibility. Mark stood up, feeling the weight of the moment. I understand. I will do my best. The council member nodded. There will be tests and challenges. We must be sure you are ready. Mark's heart beat fast. He knew this was more than a ceremony. It was a real chance to prove himself. Later that day, Mark was led to a grand hall. The room was filled with guests from many planets. Some had scales, some had wings, and others had glowing eyes. But all were watching him closely. Vela took Mark's hand and spoke to the crowd. Today, we reveal the groom to our people. He is the symbol of hope, peace, and friendship between worlds. The crowd erupted in applause again. Mark looked out and saw many faces smiling, some full of hope, others full of curiosity. Suddenly, the master of ceremonies stepped forward. His voice was loud and clear. Mark, do you accept your role as groom and the responsibilities it brings? Mark took a deep breath. Yes, I accept. The crowd cheered loudly. Mark felt a new strength inside him. He was no longer just a man from a small colony. He was part of something greater. After the ceremony, Vela took Mark to a quiet room. There is much to learn, and the Alliance will watch you closely. But I believe in you. Mark smiled. Thank you, Vela. I want to make both our worlds proud. That night, Mark lay awake thinking. He thought about Terra Nova, about his family and friends. He wondered how his life would change when he returned. But deep inside, he felt a fire, a desire to protect and unite. Days passed quickly. Mark began training with the Alliances. Best teachers, he learned their history, their language, and their ways of diplomacy. It was not easy, but Mark was determined. One afternoon, during a training session, Mark was surprised by a visitor, a young alien warrior named Kale. Kale was strong and proud, but he looked at Mark with respect. You are different from others. Kale said, You do not fear the challenge. Mark smiled. I want to learn. I want to be ready. Kale nodded. Then you will be a great groom. The Alliance needs you. Mark felt hope grow stronger. He was not alone. As weeks turned into months, Mark's confidence grew. He stood tall among the alien leaders and warriors. He learned to speak with honor and to think with courage still. Questions remained. Was he truly ready? Could he carry the hopes of many worlds on his shoulders? One evening, as the twin suns set, Vela and Mark stood together on a balcony. The sky was painted with colors Mark had never seen. "Mark," Vela said softly, "you have done well, but the greatest test is still to come." Mark looked at her, steady and strong. "I am ready." Vela smiled. "I know you are." In the quiet of the palace, Mark understood that his journey was only beginning. The role of groom was not just a title, it was a promise. A promise to protect, to unite, and to lead. And Mark was determined to keep that promise, no matter what the future held. The days on Zelora passed quickly for Mark. The palace, with all its wonders and mysteries, had become his new world. Yet, despite the beauty around him, Mark knew that understanding the customs and traditions of the Alien Alliance was the biggest challenge he faced. One morning, Princess Vela invited Mark to join her in the Hall of Traditions. It was a vast room filled with glowing symbols and ancient artifacts. The walls told stories of the Alliance's past, its victories, and its struggles. "Mark," Vela said softly, "our customs may seem strange to you, but they are important. They are the foundation of our trust and friendship." Mark nodded, looking round the hall with wide eyes. "I want to learn everything." Vela smiled warmly. "Good, let us begin." Their first lesson was about respect. In the Alliance, respect was shown in many ways. A simple bow, the way one spoke, or even the colors of clothing worn could send strong messages. "You must observe carefully," Vela explained. "One small mistake can cause confusion or offense." Mark practiced the greetings with the help of Sira, his guide. He learned to bow just enough to keep eye contact in the right way, and to listen patiently. Sometimes it was hard. His human habits did not always fit. One afternoon, during a formal gathering, Mark witnessed the importance of these customs. The leaders of many worlds came together to discuss a problem. They spoke softly but with clear meaning. A wrong word or gesture could change the meaning completely. Mark stayed silent, watching and learning. After the meeting, Vela praised him. "You did well to listen. That is the first step." Mark smiled. "Thank you. I want to be ready." Another important lesson was about communication. The Alliance had many languages, but the main language was one of harmony and respect. It used words carefully and often showed emotions through colors that appeared on clothing or skin. Sarah taught Mark how to control his own emotions in this way. It was difficult at first. Mark was used to speaking his mind freely. Now, he had to think before he spoke and learn to express feelings differently. Mark's clothes changed too. He was given a robe that shimmered softly, changing colors to match his mood. It felt strange but beautiful. One evening, as Mark practiced speaking with Vela, he realized how much he had learned. "You are improving," Vela said kindly. "Soon, you will be able to speak as if you were born here." Mark laughed softly. "That would be a surprise." Vela smiled. "You are doing better than most." But learning customs was not only about words and gestures. It was about understanding the meaning behind them. Vela took Mark to the Garden of Memories, a quiet place where the oldest members of the Alliance came to remember their history. There, they met Eldarin, a wise woman with eyes full of stories. Eldarin spoke slowly. "Our customs are like the roots of a tree. They keep us strong and connected. Without them, we lose our way." Mark listened carefully. "Humans have their own customs, yes?" Eldarin asked. Mark nodded. "Yes, but they are simple compared to this." Eldarin smiled. "Perhaps, but your courage to learn is what matters." Mark felt a new respect for the Alliance's traditions. They were not just rules, but a way to build trust and peace. One day, Mark faced his first real test of these customs. During a banquet, a disagreement arose between two alien leaders. Voices rose, and tension filled the air. Mark remembered what Vela and Sira had taught him. He stepped forward and spoke calmly. Using respectful words and gestures, slowly, the anger faded. The leaders looked at him with surprise and then nodded in agreement. Vela's eyes shone with pride. "You handled that well, Mark." Mark smiled, feeling stronger. He was beginning to understand that respect and patience could solve even the hardest problems. As weeks passed, Mark also learned about the Alliance's ceremonies. Each one told a story and honored a value like courage, wisdom, or friendship. He saw how deeply these ceremonies connected the people. One night, Vela asked Mark to join her in a private ceremony. The palace was quiet, and the stars shone brightly. "Outside, this ceremony is special," Vela explained. "It shows your commitment to our people." Mark listened as Vela led the ritual. He placed his hand on a glowing stone, promising to protect and serve the Alliance. A warm light surrounded him, and Mark felt the bond grow stronger. "I accept this responsibility," Mark said quietly. Vela smiled. "And we accept you as one of us." Mark looked around the palace and knew that his journey was far from over. But now, he was ready to face the future with respect, courage, and hope. Mark woke up early, the soft light of Zelra's twin suns shining through his window. Today was important. He had spent weeks learning the customs and language of the Alien Alliance. But now it was time for something new, training to become the Groom, the partner to Princess Vela and a leader for their people. Princess Vela met him in the hall. Her face was calm but serious. "Mark, today your training begins. It will test your mind, your body, and your spirit. Are you ready?" Mark nodded, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. "I am ready." Their first training session was with Kale, the young alien warrior Mark had met before. Kale was tall and strong, with eyes that seemed to see everything. He led Mark to a large room filled with strange machines and weapons. "This is where we prepare for what may come," Kale said. "A Groom must be more than a symbol. He must be able to defend, lead, and think clearly in any situation." Mark looked around. The machines were unlike anything he had seen. Some hummed with power. Others glowed softly. Kale handed him a light training weapon. "Let us begin," Kale said. At first, the training was difficult. Mark's human muscles were not used to the movements, and the alien language commands came fast. But Mark did not give up. Each day, he grew stronger, faster, and more confident. Vela watched from the side, encouraging him. "You are doing well, Mark. Remember, strength alone is not enough. Your heart and mind must guide you." Mark took those words to heart. After physical training, Mark met with scholars and diplomats. They taught him how to make decisions that could affect entire worlds. He learned to speak in meetings, to listen carefully, and to find solutions that help everyone. One afternoon, Mark sat with Elder Rin again. She spoke slowly, her voice full of wisdom. "A good leader must understand both strength and kindness," she said. "You will need both to be a true Groom." Mark nodded. "I will try my best." Days later, Mark practiced speaking with Vela. They talked about their worlds, their hopes, and their fears. Slowly, Mark felt a deeper connection with the princess. She was not just a leader, but a friend. One evening, during a break from training, Mark walked through the palace gardens. The glowing flowers lit the paths softly. He thought about his journey, from a simple technician on Terra Nova to the chosen groom of an alien princess. A soft voice spoke behind him. "You have come far, Mark." He turned to see Kale, standing quietly. "Do you still have doubts?" Kale asked. Mark sighed. "Sometimes. This role is bigger than anything I imagined." Kale smiled. "That is normal. But remember, the Alliance chose you because you have the spirit we need." Mark felt a warm strength inside him. Training was not just about physical skill. Mark also learned about the history of the Alliance's enemies and the challenges that might come. He studied strategies and plans, preparing for dangers that could threaten the peace. One day, an alarm sounded through the palace. The council gathered quickly. Mark was called to join them. A scout had reported movement near the borders of the Alliance, a sign that danger might be close. Mark stood with the leaders, listening carefully. They discussed plans to protect the Alliance and keep the peace. Vela looked at Mark. "This is your moment to show what you have learned." Mark felt his heart race. The training had prepared him for this. But real danger was different. The council decided to send a team to investigate the threat. Mark was chosen to go with them. As he prepared to leave, Vela took his hand. "Be careful, Mark. And remember, you are not alone." Mark smiled. "I will return." The journey to the border was long and filled with quiet tension. Mark's mind raced with thoughts of what might happen when they arrived. The team found signs of a small enemy force. It was clear the peace was fragile. Mark used what he had learned. He helped plan the defense and worked with the team to stay calm and focused. In a tense moment, Mark's quick thinking helped the team avoid an ambush. His human instincts, combined with his training, saved lives. After the danger passed, the team returned to the palace. Mark was greeted with applause and smiles. Vela hugged him gently. "You did well, Mark. You are truly the groom our worlds need." Mark felt proud but knew there was still much to do. The training was not over, but he had taken his first step as a protector and leader. That night, Mark looked out at the stars. He thought about his journey, the challenges, the lessons, and the hope. He was no longer just a man from Terra Nova. He was a groom, chosen to unite worlds and face the future together. And Mark was ready. Dark clouds gathered above the city of Zelora. Though the twin suns still shone in the sky, a strange tension filled the air. Mark stood at the palace balcony beside Princess Vela, looking out at the land he had grown to love. His training was nearly complete, but peace was beginning to shake. A messenger rushed through the golden doors of the palace. His face was pale, and his voice trembled. "Your Highness, we received another warning. A group of raiders from the Outer Dust region has entered Alliance space. They carry powerful weapons and do not answer our calls for peace." The room fell silent. Mark looked at Vela. "Is this the same group we heard about near the border?" Vela nodded slowly. "Yes. They are known as the Vark. Long ago, they were part of the Alliance, but they broke away. Now, they seek to control more land, more power." Mark's hands tightened into fists. "What do they want?" "Chaos," Kale replied as he stepped forward. "They believe strength should rule, not peace." The council gathered that evening. Leaders from across the galaxy appeared in the palace, each one worried. Holograms glowed around the meeting table as reports came in from other worlds. "They have attacked a small station near planet Rova," one leader said. "Our peace agreement is broken." Another added. Mark sat quietly at first, listening. But then he stood. "We cannot wait until they strike again. We must protect the innocent. We must show them that the Alliance is united." Some members of the council looked surprised by Mark's strong voice, but others nodded in agreement. Vela smiled faintly. "Mark is right. We cannot allow fear to divide us." A plan was made. A team would travel to the edge of Alliance space, not to fight, but to speak, to try one last time for peace. If that failed, they would defend the border with everything they had. To everyone's surprise, Mark was chosen to lead the team. "But I am not a soldier," he said, surprised. "You are more than that," Kale replied. "You are the groom, the bridge between two worlds. If anyone can bring peace, it is you." Before leaving, Mark walked alone through the Hall of Traditions. He stopped in front of a tall crystal that showed past heroes of the Alliance. He saw warriors, healers, and leaders. He wondered if he could live up to them. Vela joined him. "You carry their spirit now, Mark." He looked at her and nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." The journey was tense. The ship flew across space toward the last known location of the Vark raiders. Mark studied everything he could during the trip: maps, old records, and even Vark traditions. When they arrived, a large dark ship hovered near a silent moon. The Vark ship was covered in spikes and dark metal. Mark and his team sent a message requesting peace. A few hours later, the Vark responded. "We will speak," said a cold voice, "but we do not trust your alliance." Inside the Vark ship, Mark met their leader, a tall, armored being named Goran. His face was hard and his eyes sharp. "You are the human groom," Goran said. "Why do you speak for the alliance?" "Because I believe peace is still possible," Mark answered firmly. Goran laughed. "Peace is for the weak. We want control, not promises. Mark stayed calm. But what will that control bring you? Fear? Rebellion? If we fight, many will suffer. But if we work together, your people can grow without war. Gorn stared at him for a long time. You speak with a brave tongue, human, but we are not interested in your dreams. With that, Gorn walked away. Back on the ship, Mark and the team discussed their next step. He won't listen, one of the guards said. They're preparing for war. Mark closed his eyes. Then we must protect the border. We gave them a chance. The message was sent to the Alliance. Ships were prepared. Defenses were activated along the outer planets. The next day, the Vark moved. A fleet of their ships began flying toward the Alliance border. But this time, they were met by a strong wall of Alliance forces ready and united. Mark stood at the command deck, his voice calm. Hold your fire unless they attack. We stand for peace, but we are ready. As the Vark ships came closer, they suddenly slowed. Then, a new message appeared. Gorn's voice was different this time. Perhaps you are not as weak as I thought. The Vark ships turned away. For now. The attack was stopped. Mark let out a deep breath. The others around him cheered. Peace had won. At least for the moment. When they returned to Zelora, the palace was lit with soft blue light, a sign of celebration. The people gathered in the square, cheering for Mark, and the team. Vela stepped forward and took Mark's hand. You have done what few could. You faced danger with courage and wisdom. Mark smiled. I didn't do it alone. That night, a small ceremony was held in Mark's honor. He stood beside Vela as the council thanked him for his bravery and leadership. But Mark knew this was not the end. Peace could be shaken at any time, and it was his duty now to protect it. The palace of Zelora shined brighter than ever before. Flags of many planets flew high in the wind, and the crystal towers reflected a soft golden glow. People from across the galaxy had gathered for one reason, the final union ceremony. Mark stood in front of a tall mirror, wearing a special robe made from threads that shimmered like stardust. On his finger was the ring of union, the same one he had received on his first day. But he no longer felt confused or uncertain. Today, he stood as the chosen groom, a symbol of unity and peace. A soft knock came from the door. Sira, his kind alien guide, peeked in. It is time, she said, smiling. Mark took one deep breath and followed her down the grand hallway. Every step reminded him of his journey, from a quiet technician on Terra Nova to a respected figure in the galactic Alliance. As the doors to the ceremony hall opened, the crowd rose to their feet. Applause filled the air. Leaders, warriors, scholars, and civilians from every corner of the galaxy were there. Some held glowing flowers. Others wore traditional robes from their own planets. All had come to witness this moment. Mark walked down the aisle with calm steps, but inside, his heart was beating fast. At the center of the hall stood Princess Vela. She wore a beautiful silver dress that sparkled with soft energy. Her eyes met Mark's, and a gentle smile formed on her lips. You look strong, she whispered as he joined her. And you look like a queen, Mark replied. The master of ceremonies, a wise elder from the planet Solon, raised both hands. Silence filled the hall. Today, we complete the promise made long ago. A promise of peace between the worlds, of respect for every voice, and of hope that different people can live as one. He turned toward Mark. You were chosen not for power, but for the strength of your spirit. Do you accept this role, not as ruler, but as a servant of peace? Mark nodded. I do. Then, the elder turned to Vela. And do you, Princess of Zelora, accept this bond, to lead with wisdom and walk beside your chosen partner in unity? I do, she replied with grace. The elder raised a glowing staff, and soft light flowed around Mark and Vela. The ring on Mark's hand shone brightly, and a new symbol appeared above their heads, the mark of union, a glowing star surrounded by a circle of harmony. The entire hall rose again in applause. Music began to play, a mix of sounds from many planets. Some instruments hummed like wind, while others echoed like distant stars. Vela leaned closer. Do you remember the day you first arrived? Mark laughed softly. Yes. I looked behind me. Thinking they were clapping for someone else, she smiled. But they were clapping for you, and now, the whole galaxy does. The celebration continued outside the palace. Lights filled the sky, and ships from every world flew past, releasing colorful energy trails. Markets were full of joyful people, and children from different species played together without fear. Later that evening, Mark and Vela stood on the palace balcony, looking out at the stars. "Do you think it will last?" Mark asked. "This peace?" Vela nodded slowly. "If we keep working for it, yes. Peace is not something you build once. It must be protected, shared, and taught again and again." Mark took her hand. "Then we'll protect it together." Suddenly, a soft alarm beeped inside the palace. A small message appeared on a floating screen beside them. It was a distress call, not a war alert, but a request for help from a colony planet that had suffered a storm. Mark looked at Vela. "Should we answer?" Vela nodded. "Yes, this is what the Alliance stands for. Not just defending, but helping." Mark sent a message to the fleet. "Prepare a relief team. Let them know we're coming." The message was simple, but powerful. The new leaders were not waiting in silence. They were ready to act. That night, as the celebrations continued, Mark sat alone for a moment under a glowing tree in the garden. He remembered his old life, the quiet days, the stars above Terra Nova, and the small machines he used to fix. He had never imagined a future like this, but deep inside, he was still the same person. Someone who believed in doing the right thing, someone who listened, someone who tried. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "You've come far," Kale said, sitting beside him. "I didn't do it alone," Mark replied. "No one ever does." Kale said with a smile, "But not everyone is brave enough to try." As the final lights in the sky faded, and the stars above Zelor returned to their natural glow, Mark felt a quiet peace in his heart. He had not only accepted the role of the Groom, he had become the leader the galaxy needed. And though challenges would come again, Mark was no longer afraid. Because when the galaxy said, "Meet the Groom," he had finally stopped looking behind him. He knew now they were clapping for him all along. The end.